My name is Elias, and I've carried this secret like a fire sealed inside my bones. For years I said nothing, not because I didn't believe, but because I feared what would happen if I told the truth. I died, not metaphorically, not in a dream. I left my body. I left time. I crossed the veil, and I met him, the one they preach about on Sundays but few ever truly know. The one whose eyes saw everything in me, the hiding, the hurting, the hunger to belong, and still burned with love. He showed me something about the gift of tongues, and what he revealed. It will shake what you thought was holy, not to destroy your faith, but to burn away what never was. Even now my hands tremble to speak it. Even now I ask God if I'm ready, but this isn't about readiness, it's about obedience, because I made a vow. There, on the edge of eternity, I said, if you let me return, I'll tell them everything. So I speak now not from boldness, but from sacred fear, because when you've touched the flame, you don't walk away the same. And the truth is this: the world has mocked what it doesn't understand. The church has performed what it no longer feels, and the gift of tongues, that sacred language, has been twisted, staged, and silenced. But he showed me the original fire, the raw groaning of the Spirit, the holy syllables that carry thunder in the unseen. This isn't about performance, it's about proximity, not about chaos, but communion. He called my name in the dark, and when I answered, everything changed. I saw things no eye should see. I heard words no ear could carry. And yet here I am, bearing witness like a man under holy orders. You weren't brought here by accident. You were summoned, because somewhere in you, you remember the flame. You remember the sound beneath the sound. This is not just a story. This is a key, and the door it unlocks will not close again. He called my name in the dark, and now I call yours. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. I was born into pews and pulpits, raised under the soft hum of Sunday morning choirs and the sharp warnings of revival preachers. My earliest memories were soaked in scripture, words that floated over my head like incense, but burned their way into my chest long before I understood what they meant. They said I was a quiet child. They didn't know I was listening to everything, not just the sermons, but the silences between them, not just the music, but the sobs behind the altar. I listened for him, for his voice, for a whisper in the dark corners of my soul. And somewhere in the sacred silence, I began to realize I was different. Not in the way that inspires applause, but in the way that invites suspicion. A raised eyebrow, a hushed prayer request. I was a boy with a tender heart, a voice that trembled when asked to speak, a soul that didn't know how to fit into the rough shape of expectation. By the time I was 11, I knew I was what the church called broken, not because I had sinned, but because I was seen. I liked the softness of light, the beauty in details, the way music could carry things even words couldn't name. I noticed the boy 2 rows ahead more than I did the girl beside me, and that knowing, that unspoken knowing, hung over my spirit like an invisible stain. I prayed every night for God to fix me. Fix this ache, fix this desire, fix this, me. I buried myself in the Word, as if reading enough could wash it away. I joined worship teams, youth groups, prayer chains, but no matter how loud I sang, I could still hear the whisper, "Something's wrong with you." They never said it to my face, but I heard it in the pauses, in the verses they emphasized, in the testimonies that always ended in heterosexual marriage. I got the message, so I learned how to disappear, how to smile on cue, how to pray in tongues like the others, repeating syllables I barely understood, wondering if they had power or if I was just making noise. Sometimes I thought I could feel him, hovering over me in the dark, watching my tears soak the pillow. But I didn't know if he was there to comfort me or to judge me. I carried shame like skin. It moved with me. It dressed with me. It sat beside me in the pews, and yet, in the hollow ache of that identity crisis, I still longed for him, not the God of condemnation, but the God who saw me, who knew me, who still called my name in the dark. I'd wake up, go to school, act like everything was fine, pass the hallways like a ghost, eat lunch alone, come home to a family who loved God but couldn't see the storm quietly drowning me. My prayers changed as I got older, from fix me to kill me, from help me to end it. Because what's the point of living if you're already lost before you begin? Still, I kept singing. Still, I kept showing up. Still, I kept pretending. And somewhere in that monotony of pain, I became numb. Not angry, just empty. Not rebellious, just tired. But there were signs. Little cracks in the sky. Moments that made no sense. A flash of light in a dream. A verse I couldn't forget. A chill during worship that felt more like warning than comfort. Something was stirring. Something ancient. Something that had waited for me to reach the end of myself. I didn't know it then, but the silence wasn't empty. It was pregnant. And the ache I thought would kill me was the very place he would meet me. He called my name in the dark, and even though I hadn't yet answered, he was already walking toward me. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Because even in my doubt, even in my disobedience, even in my confusion, he was not disgusted. He was waiting, and the waiting was almost over. It happened on an ordinary night, the kind you forget until something eternal breaks through it. I remember the sky was heavy, gray with no stars, like heaven had turned its face away. I had gone to bed numb, the kind of numb that feels like surrender. Not a cry for help, but a quiet agreement with the darkness. I had reached the bottom of myself, and beneath that bottom, there was nothing. No more prayers left to pray. No more masks to wear. No more pretending I wanted to wake up the next day. I didn't take anything. I didn't plan it. But something happened. A tightening in my chest. A ringing in my ears. Then silence. I remember lying there, eyes closed but aware. And then, a strange stillness. Not sleep, not rest. A holy stillness that didn't belong to this world. Then came the pain, sharp, electric, like heaven and earth had clashed in my ribcage. My breath shortened. My hands went cold. My thoughts slowed down until there was just one left. This is it. And yet I wasn't afraid. There was no fear, only release, like something ancient in me had been waiting for this moment all along. Then came the light, not the kind you see with your eyes, but the kind that sees you. The ceiling dissolved. The weight left my body, and I felt myself rise, not floating like a dream, not flying like a fantasy, but unfolding, like a soul being unwrapped from flesh. I looked down. There I was, still in the bed, still dressed in my skin. But I wasn't inside anymore. I had crossed something invisible, but realer than every physical thing I had ever touched. I was spirit, and I was aware. Time no longer ticked. It pulsed, slow and wide, like waves upon waves of knowing. I could feel colors. I could hear silence. I could remember things I'd never lived. And then, the whisper came. Not a voice in my ear, but a voice in my essence, soft, patient, near. It said, "Come closer." And every part of me moved, not with muscles, but with longing. The atmosphere around me felt alive, not air, but something purer, like liquid light, like presence itself. And it wrapped around me like the arms I had always needed but never found. I wasn't floating. I wasn't flying. I was being drawn, pulled gently by something, or someone, who knew my name before my parents ever spoke it. He called my name in the dark, and I followed. I didn't ask where. I didn't resist. Because in that place, all questions dissolve. There is only knowing, only remembering, only return. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. It wasn't just death, it was invitation. A door hidden beneath despair, a gate veiled by shame. And once I stepped through, I realized everything I had called reality was just a shadow of this, and the world I had feared was only a hallway into the arms of the one who had never stopped watching. He called my name in the dark, and I said yes. It was not like waking up, it was like remembering, like stepping into the origin of who I was before time gave me a name. The place I entered wasn't made of ground or sky, it was made of presence. The air itself shimmered, alive with something that felt like music, but didn't need sound. Everything glowed, not with brightness that blinded, but with clarity that healed. Light didn't come from a source. It came from everything. From above, beneath, within. It pulsed with rhythm, like breath, like the heartbeat of God humming through creation. I was not walking. I was being carried, not by force, but by invitation. A pull so gentle it honored my choice, and yet so holy I could not refuse. The closer I moved toward it, the more weight fell away. The fear, the shame, the names others had given me. They didn't survive in this place. There were beings around me, souls radiant and whole. Some I recognized not with memory, but with spirit. A grandmother who had died when I was too young to speak, yet I knew her. A boy I had once shared a hospital room with for 2 days, his smile now brighter than any sun. And others, so ancient, so full of wisdom, they felt like the breath of eternity wrapped in form. They didn't speak, but I heard them, not in my ears, but in the marrow of my spirit. It was worship, not the kind that repeats lyrics on a screen, but the kind that exists simply because truth demands expression. It was a language beyond syllables, tones that never began and never ended. Each note held a name, a memory, a universe. Each pause, a revelation. And I understood it. Not with intellect, but with the part of me that had always known it. You were never forgotten. That was the phrase that seemed to hum in everything. In the light, in the movement, in the air around me. You were never forgotten. And I believed it. For the first time in my life, I believed it. There was no striving here. No need to prove, to posture, to perform. Just being, and being fully loved. I didn't feel tolerated. I felt chosen. The ache that had haunted me on earth, that longing to be known and embraced, was met in an instant. Not explained, but completed. And I wept. Not from sorrow, but from the unbearable beauty of finally being seen and still being wanted. He called my name in the dark, and I answered. And when I arrived, I found I had never been alone. Every wound on my spirit, every hidden prayer, every cry whispered into a pillow. It had been gathered, kept, treasured. You were never forgotten. The wind itself whispered it. The trees, if you could call them that, sang it in rustling tones. The river, clear and endless, carried it downstream like a lullaby for the soul. It was home. But more than that, it was the original home, the one before flesh, the one before sorrow, the one before sin and misunderstanding. And in that place, I remembered who I was. Not Elias, the scared boy, not Elias, the rejected, not Elias, the label, the burden, the mistake, but Elias, the beloved, the designed, the known, the called, returned to the fire. That phrase echoed again, not as a command, but as a promise, that what I had encountered here wasn't just for eternity, it was meant to break into time, to return through me. I was being shown this not as a reward, but as a revelation, not to escape earth, but to carry heaven back into it. You were never forgotten. He called my name in the dark, and when I arrived, the light called me son. And still, the journey wasn't over. The center of the light had not yet revealed itself. and I could feel it. The shift, the invitation, the weight of divine presence drawing closer. I was not just here to be comforted. I was here to be called. And then, the light moved, not away from me, but toward me. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't loud. It was like the rising of the sun, but from within. A warmth that began at the edges of my knowing and then filled every part of me. And in that light, he appeared. Not like the paintings, not like the stained glass windows I'd stared at as a child, trying to memorize the face they told me to worship. No, he was not a figure. He was the center. He was the origin of light itself. And yet, somehow, he was a man. He looked at me, and everything I was unraveled, not in shame, not in terror, but in revelation. He knew me. I don't mean he recognized me. I mean he knew me, like a gardener knows every root, like a shepherd knows every scar on his sheep, like a mother knows the cry of her own child in a crowd of thousands. In one glance, he saw my entire life, the first tear I ever cried, the secret questions I had hidden even from myself, the moments I wanted to die, the times I smiled when I was breaking inside, the nights I curled beneath my blanket begging God to make me normal. He saw it all, and he did not flinch. No disgust, no disapproval, just knowing and love. Overwhelming, crushing, all-consuming love, not as a concept, but as a person. I tried to speak, but I had no voice, and even if I did, there was no language holy enough. But it didn't matter, because in that place, words weren't needed. He heard me, from within me. All my questions were already answered in his presence. All my fears melted under his gaze. All my confusion stood naked and powerless before his truth. He never said, "You are wrong." He said, "You are mine." He never said, "Fix yourself." He said, "Come closer." He never said, "This disqualifies you." He said, "This is where I begin." He called my name in the dark, and now he was calling me into the light. And then, he reached toward me, not with hands, but with being, and I felt it, the cleansing, the washing, the undoing of years of religion, rejection, performance. He was not tolerating me. He was reclaiming me, and in that moment, I fell, not downward, but inward. I fell into him, into the center of all things, into a love so vast it made my sin feel like a shadow at high noon. He spoke again, not with a voice, but with fire. "You are not what they said you are." And everything inside me broke. All the masks, all the shame, all the lies, gone. There was only surrender. I whispered it, though I had no mouth. "I am yours." And he received it as if he had been waiting my entire life for those 3 words. I am yours. Not because I was perfect, not because I understood, but because I had seen him. And once you see him, truly see him, nothing else will do. He called my name in the dark, and when I answered, I found that he had never stopped calling. Return to the fire, return to the fire, return to the fire. In that encounter, there was no condemnation, only truth, only love, only destiny. And he said, again without speaking, "I did not make a mistake when I made you. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a vessel to be filled." I had spent my whole life begging him to take me away from who I was, but in that place, I saw the truth. He never wanted to take me away from myself. He wanted to restore me to the version of me that existed before fear, before labels, before the world twisted love into law. I am yours. I am yours. I am yours. He smiled, and the universe bowed, not because he demanded it, but because he deserved it. And I knew my life would never belong to me again. I had touched the fire, and I would carry its mark forever. And then he drew me deeper, not with hands but with glory, not with force but with flame. The place around me changed, the stillness shifted, the light thickened. It folded in on itself like a veil being lifted, and what I saw next, what I was shown, was not of earth, and yet it has shaped every breath I take here now. He brought me to a place where time did not exist, only memory, but not the kind we recall with mind. Memory made of spirit, like heaven remembering what earth forgot. And in that realm, he showed me the origin of tongues. It did not begin in noise, it began in fire, not chaos, but communion, not performance, but purity. The fire of Pentecost, not a legend, not a myth, but a living moment in eternity, forever burning, forever echoing across the ages. I saw it. I saw them, the upper room, the trembling hearts, the eyes lifted not in pride, but in surrender. And then, the tongues descended. But they were not just sounds, they were keys. Each syllable was a gateway, each utterance, a flame. It was not meant for spectacle. It was not meant for status. It was the language of love unspoken by men. The language that bypasses wounds, the language that undoes generations of silence. And he said to me, not with mouth, but with majesty. This was always meant to be sacred, a secret place between creator and created, a restoration of what was lost at Babel, a return to the fire. Return to the fire, return to the fire. And then, he showed me the counterfeit. I wept, because I recognized it. He showed me sanctuaries turned into stages. He showed me lips moving, but hearts disconnected. He showed me rooms full of noise, but empty of reverence. Tongues that echoed not the Holy Spirit, but the ego. Tongues used to dominate, to impress, to separate. He showed me gatherings where the sound of heaven was replaced by rehearsed rhythms, a theater, a noise. Tongues like clanging cymbals, absent of love. And he wept, not in anger, but in holy grief, because what was meant to heal had become a performance, and still. He showed me the remnant, a scattered people, unseen, uncelebrated, but burning. Men and women, old and young, in living rooms and forests, in prison cells and hospital beds, uttering fire from clean hearts. I saw one woman in a remote village, on her knees in the dirt, her tongue speaking mysteries that angels leaned in to hear. I saw a child in a refugee camp, eyes closed, speaking in syllables no man taught him. And heaven roared, and I understood. It is not the volume, it is the vessel. It is not the performance, it is the posture. And then, he said, tongues will return in power, but not as the world expects. Not with fame, not with noise, but with trembling, with tears, with awe. There is a generation I have hidden. They are being called now. They are chosen. They will carry the sound of heaven again, not to impress, but to intercede, not to rise, but to revive, not to divide, but to awaken. And I saw them, a vision of the coming ones, faces from every tribe and tongue, eyes lit like lamps, hearts carrying the ancient flame, and from their lips, a sound pure and wild, not rehearsed, not taught, but birthed. And the enemy fears them, because when tongues are pure, hell trembles. When tongues are pure, chains break. When tongues are pure, territories shift. And the Lord whispered to me again, the warfare will increase, because the purity is rising. But tell them not to be afraid. Tell them to guard their fire. Tell them to speak, even when mocked, even when misunderstood, because the ones who carry fire will usher in my glory. The truth must be told. They are chosen. Return to the fire. He called my name in the dark, and he gave me this to carry, not as a crown but as a warning, not as a title but as a torch. And now, I speak it to you, not because I want to, but because I vowed to, because I saw it, because I touched it, because I burned in it. The gift is holy, the fire is real, and it is returning. And then, he showed me what comes next. Not a prediction, not a fantasy, but a vision, etched into the marrow of my spirit like fire carved into stone. The awakening begins quietly. It does not come with celebrity. It does not begin in cathedrals or under stained glass ceilings. It starts in the forgotten corners of the earth, in basements lit by candlelight, in prison cells where the condemned whisper praises in chains, in deserts, in alleys, in bedrooms soaked in the tears of those who have cried themselves to sleep, asking, "God, is there more?" Yes, there is more. And it is coming. I saw them. They had no platforms. They had no microphones. They had no followers. But they had fire. A fire that could not be marketed, could not be monetized, could not be muted. They spoke in tongues not to be seen, but to be emptied. They wept as they prayed, not because they were weak, but because heaven was pouring through them like oil through torn vessels. They spoke mysteries into the air, and the atmosphere shifted. They laid hands on each other, not with showmanship, but with trembling reverence. They were the outcasts, the overlooked, the ones the world said were disqualified, and yet he called their names in the dark. I heard it. I still hear it. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. And from every nation they began to rise, a remnant, not dressed in robes but clothed in glory. I saw revival without schedule, masses weeping in the streets, people falling to their knees in grocery stores, strangers embracing on subways as the Spirit poured out through their trembling tongues. Not chaos, not confusion, but a deep groaning, the earth itself participating in the birthing of something ancient and new. Heaven touched soil, the line blurred, the sacred spilled into the ordinary, and in the center of it all were the wounded, the rejected, the misunderstood, the ones like me. I saw a gay man lift his hands and cry out in tongues no one taught him. Only heaven. I saw a woman covered in tattoos rocking back and forth in an abandoned church as angels circled her in worship. I saw children, so small their voices cracked, prophesying over nations, their words cutting through centuries of silence. And I wept, because I knew they will lead the world into spiritual rebirth, not the powerful, not the eloquent, but the yielded, the broken, the burning. He whispered again, "This is my church, not built with bricks but breath, not held together by doctrine, but by my spirit." And I saw the buildings fall, not in ruin, but in surrender. I saw denominations dissolve like ink in water, not erased, but reabsorbed into the greater body. Unity. Finally, not man-made, but God-breathed. They stood together, hands clasped across tribes, races, languages, and in the center of them all, fire, pure, untouchable, uncontainable. It danced across heads like it did in Acts, tongues of fire resting on ordinary people called to an extraordinary hour. This was no trend. This was no movement. This was restoration. They were the first fruits of something eternal. They were the ones who would not bow. They were the ones who still believed. And as I watched, I realized, I am one of them, and so are you. If you felt forgotten, you are the beginning. If you've wept alone, your tears have watered the roots of this coming glory. If you've spoken in the dark, you've already joined the chorus. He called your name in the dark, and you answered. This is the hour of the remnant. This is the return of fire. This is the awakening of the unseen. They will lead the world into spiritual rebirth. They will carry the flame. They will not be stopped. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. I woke up in a room that no longer felt like Earth. It was a hospital, they said. Fluorescent lights buzzed above me like confused angels. Machines beeped in mechanical rhythms, but none of it sounded real. Not after where I'd just been. Not after what I saw. My body had returned, but my spirit had not fully followed. It was still tethered to something higher, something brighter, something burning. I blinked against the harsh light. Voices swam in and out, nurses, doctors, family. but all I could hear was the last whisper of glory fading from my spirit. Return to the fire. I had made a vow. In that place beyond time, in the presence of the holy, I said, if I ever came back, I would speak. So I did, trembling, softly at first. I told my mother. I told a friend from church. I told a former pastor. I told them I saw Jesus. I told them he spoke to me about tongues, about the remnant, about the awakening that is coming. They smiled like I was sweet, or sick, or deceived. One of them said, "You were hallucinating. It was the medication." Another said, "That's not how God works. Don't be misled." I tried again. I used softer words. I quoted scripture. I prayed before speaking. Still, they recoiled. Even those who had prayed for revival their whole lives seemed afraid of the fire when it finally flickered in me. And then came the others. Online, at work, in whispers behind my back, in the stares that lasted too long, the conversations that fell silent when I entered the room. They called me delusional, attention-seeking, possessed, and when I lay in bed at night, the dreams began. Shadows watching from the corner of my room, electric devices turning on by themselves, glitches in my phone every time I tried to share my testimony. Once, while uploading a video of me recounting what I saw, the screen went black and a phrase appeared I'd never typed. "You were not supposed to see that." Another night, I heard knocking, not at the door, but inside my chest, like something trying to silence the flame inside me. I cried out, "Jesus, help me." And the answer came, soft but unmistakable. "Keep speaking. Keep speaking." And so I did, even when it cost me friends, even when I was unfollowed, blocked, uninvited, even when my church asked me not to share that kind of story anymore. I kept speaking, because the fire was not mine to contain, it was his, and I was only the wick. I live now between two worlds, one foot in the temporal, surrounded by doubt and screens and the hum of skepticism. One foot in eternity, still echoing with angelic sound, still wrapped in memory of that sacred moment when he called my name in the dark. I carry the tension daily, the ache of having seen what others do not believe, the loneliness of walking with eyes open when everyone else insists on darkness. But the call has not lessened. If anything, it has grown louder, more urgent, because every time I speak, even if only one soul listens, the fire spreads. Even if one heart dares to believe, a spark is born. And the enemy knows this. He hates this. He will try to confuse, to distract, to distort, to divide. Because if the fire catches, if the remnant rises, if the tongues return in purity, his grip will shatter. So I endure. Because I made a vow. Because the one I saw looked into me with eyes of endless knowing and said, without words, "You were chosen to carry this." And you, listening now, perhaps you feel it too. Perhaps your spirit is stirring. Perhaps your dreams have changed. Perhaps you've seen shadows where there once was light. That's not confusion. It's resistance. Because what you carry is real. Because the fire is returning. Because they don't want this truth to spread. But it must. And it will. Keep speaking, even when they mock you, even when they misunderstand, even when the world says you're insane, even when the enemy whispers that you're alone. You are not alone. He called your name in the dark, and now you must answer. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. The world is not what it seems, not anymore. It is not neutral. It is not silent. It is groaning, and it is at war. A war not fought with swords or bullets, but for the very essence of who you are, for your soul. I speak now not with fear, but with a trembling urgency, because what I saw, what he showed me, was not just for me, it was for you. Tongues are not a performance. They are not a party trick. They are keys, ancient, burning keys, meant to unlock heavenly doors. access codes to the spirit realm. They carry a frequency, a fire frequency that hell cannot counterfeit. But many have turned them into noise, into empty sound, into rehearsed cadence for the approval of crowds. And heaven does not dance to crowds. He showed me. The fake will fall. The glittering, the grand, the self-exalting will crumble under the weight of truth. But the true, the trembling remnant hidden in closets and forests and prisons, those who speak in tongues not for applause, but in anguish, in yearning, in the depths of midnight desperation, they will rise, in secret places, with fire that no man gave them, and no man can take. Return to the fire. You must understand. This isn't about denomination. It's not about style or Sunday routine. It's about survival. Spiritual survival. Because the days ahead, they are not soft. They will not bend for you. They will demand your allegiance, to truth or to delusion. There will be no middle ground. The lukewarm will suffocate in the heat of deception. And he said it. Not everyone will survive spiritually in the days to come. Many will call him Lord, but he will say, I never knew you. Not because they were evil, but because they never sought him in truth, because they confused goosebumps with glory, because they replaced intimacy with performance. So I speak now to the aching ones, the wandering, the quiet, the forgotten, the ones who hide their hunger behind weary smiles, the ones who have cried out in the dark, God, if you're real, come find me. He has. He called your name in the dark. You were not brought here by accident. You are not watching this by chance. This is a summons, a holy interruption. Come back to the Word, come back to Christ, not the image you were sold, not the God of spectacle and noise, but the God who walked among the broken, the God who prayed in solitude, the God who wept, the God who bled, the God who still speaks, in fire and in silence. Seek the Holy Spirit. Don't chase tongues. Chase Him. Ask for the gift, but more than that, ask for discernment. Ask for purity. Ask for the burden. Because those who carry the fire also carry the weight. It will cost you. Friends, comfort, reputation, even your old self. But it will be worth it. The true church is not coming. It is awakening. She's rising like a whisper from the ashes. And you were brought here to awaken. So rise. Pray. Fast. Repent. Listen. Speak. Speak when it's inconvenient. Speak when it burns. Speak when they laugh. Speak when they threaten. Speak even if your voice trembles, even if your life shakes, even if no one claps. Keep speaking, because the fire must spread, because the time is now. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. He called my name in the dark, and I answered, broken, trembling, unworthy. But I answered, This is not just my story. It is the sound of your soul stirring. It is your own buried flame beginning to flicker. It is your spirit, remembering. The veil is thin. Do you feel it? The invisible has come closer than breath. The wind of heaven brushes against your thoughts even now. Don't brush it off. Don't scroll away. You were brought here to remember. I have shared what I saw, what I heard, what burned through me like sacred fire. Not to impress you, not to convince you, but to hand you the flame. Will you rise or remain asleep? I see the battle lines forming, not on maps, but in hearts. I see slumbering warriors waking with tears on their faces. I see children weeping in secret, not knowing why. I see the forgotten being anointed in caves, in cellars, in lonely bedrooms. No followers, no fame, only fire. Return to the fire. You are not too far gone. You are not too late. You are not disqualified. He never forgot you, not once. You were not abandoned. You were preserved. Now it is your turn to burn, not with anger, not with self-righteousness, but with truth, with mercy, with fire that heals. Keep speaking, keep burning, keep praying. This world does not need more noise. It needs groaning intercession. It needs humble prophets. It needs purity over platform, tears over applause, sacrifice over comfort. Speak when it costs you. Pray when it bruises your knees. Worship when the heavens seem silent. Because he hears you. Because he still walks among the lamps. Because he still calls names in the dark. He called mine. Now he is calling yours. And if you hear him, if something in you is shaking, then listen. Come out of hiding. Stand in the ashes. Let the fire mark you again. Let your language change. Let your voice return to truth. Not polished, not perfect, but pure. Keep speaking, even if no one claps. Keep burning, even if no one sees. Keep praying, even if it feels like silence. Because the veil is thin, and heaven is watching, and the Spirit is hovering, waiting, listening, calling. This is not entertainment. This is a vow kept in blood and breath. This is Gorkros, the Serene Bible. Not serene because it's soft, serene because it is still before the throne, still in the face of chaos, still in surrender. This truth is yours now. Carry it, weep with it, war with it, love with it, to the ends of the earth, to the broken in back alleys, to the preacher on the edge of quitting, to the boy who hides his voice, to the girl who fears her calling, to the addict, to the prophet, to the lonely, to the lost, to you. Carry it. Keep speaking. Keep burning. Keep praying. He called your name in the dark. Now, answer.